Marital separation versus divorce. Many separate for long periods of time without actually initiating divorce. After the break, Kathryn Deckert from Stein Sperling is going to join us to tell us all about the difference between separation and divorce and why many choose one over the other. And by now, most everybody's heard about Jada Pinkett and Will Smith and their 7-year separation. Well, apparently, this really isn't uncommon. Other celebrities have been doing the same thing, but these long-term separations actually aren't just for celebrities. So let's bring in Kathryn Deckert. She's from Stein Sperling. She can help us understand this issue a little more. Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you as well.
So how common is it really for people to just separate for long periods of time and not go ahead and get divorced?
It's actually pretty common. I see it quite frequently in my practice where I have, one party come to me and they've been separated for up to 10 years or more, living sometimes in the same household as their spouse, just in separate parts of the residence, like separate bedrooms, essentially as unhappy roommates.
So why would people choose that? Why wouldn't you just go ahead and get divorced so you could go on with your life?
It's a good question. I mean, from what I see, I think the number one reason that my clients at Stein Sperling come to me and say this is because they're concerned about the children, right? A lot of times they decide to wait to separate because they want to wait until the children have aged out or, graduated high school and are going on to college. There's also the financial considerations, particularly if one spouse, makes significantly more money or the other spouse isn't working. There's concerns about how they're going to be able to stretch those same, dollars into two households. And then sometimes it's inertia. They're unhappy, but they're really not certain about what they want to do, whether or not they really want to get divorced, or if there's still, a glimmer of hope that they can reconcile.
I mean, how often does reconciliation really happen once a separation has happened?
I would say it's less common. I mean,
Yeah.
I do have some clients who, want to give it another go, but I would say more often than not, it's at that point, it's less common.
So if people are considering this, though, there are legal things they need to keep in mind, right? I mean, because if you don't actually go ahead and get divorced, then there are some things that are still at play, be it medical power of attorney or assets that you're still accruing, right?
Absolutely. And they're very real, serious considerations. I mean, the first one you mentioned is very serious, is that in most jurisdictions, if there's not a medical directive or a power of attorney in place, and more often than not, it's going to be your spouse making those all important decisions in the event of your incapacity, which is concerning if this is someone you've been essentially estranged from for 10 years or more. And then there's also assets. I mean, depending on the jurisdiction, and in Maryland in particular, the marital property continues to accrue until the date of divorce. So even if you've been separated for 10, 15 years, that's still going to be part of the marital pot up for division at the time of divorce. So those are very real considerations, and why, it's better to speak to an attorney and figure out what your next step should be.
So is there something such as a separation agreement where you can outline all those things?
Absolutely. It's, very common way to resolve a divorce in an amicable fashion is through a separation agreement, or what's called a marital settlement agreement, where you resolve all those issues arising from the marriage, such as the division of marital property, what happens with the real property, what happens with the children, alimony, child support. You can resolve all those issues in a comprehensive separation agreement.
So if you're going to have a separation agreement, why wouldn't you just go ahead and do a divorce?
Well, a lot of times, let's be clear, that's on the way towards divorce. If you're still thinking that there's a glimmer of hope, that there's a chance of reconciliation, generally speaking, that would be a postnuptial agreement. So a separation agreement, even though it sounds like, okay, there's still an intention to potentially stay married, not get divorced, that generally speaking is heading towards divorce, whereas a postnuptial agreement is more along the lines or more akin to a prenuptial agreement where there's an intention to work on the marriage. Perhaps you set forth what that looks like in terms of counseling or such, but it also provides that safety net in terms of what happens in the event that it doesn't work out and what happens to the property and the finances and things of that nature.
So what's the biggest thing a regular person needs to keep in mind if they're doing a separation versus a celebrity? Because, people be like, well, these celebrities do it, so why can't we?
Well, I mean, really, it's the fact that the longer you're separated, I think the power of attorney piece or the advanced medical directive, if those documents are not executed, then you still have this person out there that can make those all important decisions regarding you. And two, I mean, this accumulation of money, right, in terms of retirement, in terms of a house, for the average person who doesn't have, 4 or 5 homes, like perhaps a celebrity, you have one house that's accruing equity or, multiple retirement accounts. And so you need to think about that in terms of, do you really want this person you're estranged from getting potentially half of that in the event of divorce?
I'll tell you, interesting. Kathryn Deckert from Stein Sperling. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you informing us this morning.
Thanks.